Hello and welcome to the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. I'm your host, Jeff Harvey, registered migration agent with Down Under Visa, the premier Australian migration agent in Manila, Philippines, specialising in visas for Australian Filipino couples. We hope you enjoy this podcast and hope it proves useful to you. Please feel free to share this with your partner and with any of your interested friends. Let's get started. Student visas, work visas, a good alternative to a partner visa? Now, I think it's pretty obvious from our website that Down Under Visa specialise in Australian partner visas. We manage spouse visas and fiancee visa applications on a daily basis, and we do an excellent job with them. Now, we live and breathe partner visas. And we do that because we can relate personally, having been through the process ourselves, and because we believe in marriage. Now, marrying my Filipino lady, that was the best decision I ever made. And I like helping others to do the same with their own Filipino sweethearts. Look, student visas and work visas, to be honest, whilst I know this is important and often life-changing to applicants, but it doesn't really pluck my heartstrings in the same way. Now, I'm assuming this makes sense. We just like bringing Australian Filipino couples together. Now, with partner visa fees taking a large leap, no doubt there will be prospective visa applicants thinking of other ways to get into Australia without paying the big bucks for high visa application charges. And look, sorry to say there will be some migration agents who will make questionable suggestions too. Now, I've always believed that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and we've only ever advised clients to stick to the straight path. In other words, if you want to be a student, you get a student visa. If you want to work, you get a work visa. But if you want to stay with your beloved, well, it's a partner visa. Genuinely. The Australian Embassy in Manila would have seen more dodgy applications than most of us have had hot dinners, and most of the time they will find a weakness in your case where one exists. Now, issues with making non-genuine applications. Student visas. Now, to get a student visa, they need to be utterly convinced that you really have a genuine, there's that word again, genuine, reason for wanting to do this particular course in Australia. So you've scoured the offerings at colleges and universities, both in the Philippines and in Australia, and you found absolutely nothing that will further your career more than a hairdressing course offered by Swindle Me College at Ashfield in Sydney. Okay, now seriously, what would you think if you were the case officer? Now, why would Murray Bell from Mandaluyong want to travel all that way and spend overseas student fees and pay Aussie rent for something she could do in Manila at a fraction? And don't say it's because they run the hairdressing course in English, which will help her in her future career in the salons of New York one day. Colleges in the Philippines teach in English. This is one of the reasons there are a flood of Korean students here. Cheap tuition fees, cheap living, and English thrown in. Now, look, the fact that Mari Lou has boyfriend Dave just down the road from Swindle Me College in Ashfield, this might also play its part in why they won't believe you. Now, work visas. Look, most of these simply won't get off the ground either, I have to say. I'm not sure whether to say sorry to say or not, because I think there would only be more refusals and money wasted if more people applied. You cannot offer your fiancée a job in your business as a secretary. Now, you can't get your mate to offer her a job in his hardware store either, nor can she work as a kitchen hand in the staff canteen at the mine. It just doesn't work that way. Now, look, they have a list of skilled professions and trades that are highly in demand, and there are no low skilled or general type jobs there. These are high level jobs, and they are jobs that pay over $50,000 a year. Now, they require an employer to enter into a sponsorship agreement with the government, as well as to offer a long-term contract to the employee. And yes, they do go and check if that skilled worker is sweeping the floor and cleaning the toilets too, instead of the job they're actually supposed to be doing. And they go pretty hard on those who try to play the system on these. And apart from that, they require tested English skills too, good English. So in other words, yeah, it's just that you're talking about the sort of jobs where an employer in Australia who cannot get the expert that they need locally, they have to actually look overseas. So it's not the sort of thing that you can very easily slot your partner into. Okay. Now, partner visas. If you are in a genuine and committed relationship with your fiancé, spouse or de facto partner, now the chances are we can get you a partner visa or a prospective marriage visa. Now, we are really good at putting partner visa applications together, and refusals are very unlikely if you are genuine. There's that word again. So you see what I'm getting at. Now, you want to be with your wife, your husband, fiancé, and you don't have to scheme, plot, manipulate or lie in order to make it happen. Pay the fees, bite the bullet, and just be yourselves, and you will soon be on your way. So, look, again, we understand and we do sympathise. It can be difficult, and it can be a bit challenging to come up with those fees. But look, they've done things in such a way where, look, if it was easy to find an alternative to paying partner visa fees, well then everybody would be doing it. I mean, what would we be doing as migration agents? Well, obviously, if there was a simple and easy pathway that could be done, well, we'd be saying to people, well, hey, you could do a partner visa, or instead you could do it this way. But we don't, because, well, it would be unethical, and because we don't want to be wasting people's time. So, look, despite the fact that these seem like viable alternatives, I suppose it's one of the problems with the system itself is that you look at websites, you look at the government website, and it looks a little bit like the Amazon shopping list. It looks like you can just go through and choose what you want and send it off to your shopping cart, and say, I'll have one of these, and I'll have it in brown, and I'll have it wrapped up, please. Well, I mean, it doesn't work like that. These are visas. Visas are grants, they're not rights. You can't say, I think I will have a student visa, because again, these things are governed by laws, and student visas are there in place for those who are genuinely students. And, as I said, I don't see too many student visas from the Philippines getting granted at all. This is why we don't touch these at all. And look, to expand on this, look, the same thing comes up when it comes to your relatives. We find, well, it happens all the time where somebody comes to Australia and, the next thing they're thinking of, and, they're often reminded, of course, by those in the Philippines is, what about your sister? What about your cousin? How about you help them to get to Australia too? And you think, well, okay, what can we do? Do we know somebody who'll marry her? Well, no, we don't. Student visa. How about we bring her to Australia as a student? Again, it's not there as a shopping list. They want to know and believe absolutely that your cousin is wanting to do a course that she can only do in Australia. And look, unless she happens to, be looking at doing a PhD in some particular area where only somebody at the University at New England would be able to be her supervisor to do this, well then, again, forget about the hairdressing courses and the English language courses and the catering courses, that type of thing. You can do the things here for a fraction, so why on earth would you go there? The instant thought is that you're trying to give them a leg up into Australia, and they don't like that. Same thing when it comes down to work visas. We get this type of thing of, oh look, our brother, he's a marvellous fellow. He's such a nice young man, and look, he could work with me on the farm, or he could, be my offsider or something. Well, yeah, again, unless he is actually fulfilling a role that it's hard to find somebody in Australia to fill, and he's going to bring, certain skills to Australia, well, then it is simply not going to happen. You have to accept the fact that you need to tell relatives in the Philippines that you don't have the power or the right to invite somebody. Absolutely nobody does. You cannot say, I want to bring them here because, he's Maribel's brother, and he's a nice young man and he's struggling to do well. That's not a good enough reason to bring him over. So you can waste a whole lot of time and stress, and you can build their hopes up only to bring them crashing down again and make them wonder whether you just don't want to help them in the first place. Or you can be honest with them and just say, look, I'm sorry, but this is not within my power to do this. So there's a reason why we don't do work visas. There's a reason why we don't do student visas. If we thought they were viable, yes, absolutely, we would do them. But in most cases, they're an absolute waste of time. So, stick to what is straightforward. You met your lovely lady, you want to get married, well then stick to the partner visa. Her relatives, look, I'm sure they're very nice, but there's not a whole lot that you can do for them. And you need to accept that, and you need to tell them. Okay, thanks very much for listening. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you found this useful. Australian visas from the Philippines are not easy, and the outcome matters, as you well know. Please feel free to contact us anytime if you need some further help. And we look forward to talking to you again next time. Bye-bye.